You keep using this word, and I realize I feel like I'm Inigo Montoya. You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means. I didn't know what it meant. Apparently, I thought kaiju was like a proprietary term because I was starting to wonder, like, how are all these people using the word kaiju, right?
Yeah.
Because I thought it was like Godzilla. I thought it was a name that
Yeah.
somebody created, but apparently it's like saying beast or monster. That's all
Just
kaiju
sounds
means.
cooler when
It
it's
just sounds cooler.
Japanese.
Original geek, that's who I am. Rolling 20s with my squad, we got a plan. Marvel heroes on the wall, D&D dice in hand. Original geek, across the land. Level up, never gonna give it up.
All right, welcome to Original Geek. This is the podcast for anybody who rolled dice in a basement, waited all night long for comic book covers to download, or proudly wore that label of geek back when it could get you shoved into a locker. Each week, we dive deep into what it meant to be a geek in the 70s and 80s and how that compares to today's pop culture multiverse. We are your hosts. We are two of the Gen X survivors who didn't just watch geek culture evolve, we lived through every awkward phase. Hey, I'm Steve Scarfo.
And I'm Jeff Shaw, and we'll be your puny human pilots, hopelessly outmatched in our mecha, praying the nuclear core holds up long enough for one last heroic punch. What's our topic today, Steve?
Today we're going into Creature Double Feature. Back when Saturdays, and for me I think it was Sundays, really meant a Creature Double Feature. It was two of the best old horror movies. It was a Sunday afternoon tradition, and 12 o'clock and 2 o'clock you could be guaranteed for some rubber-suited, like wonderful, horribly awesome horror movies. Usually they were Godzilla or some sort of movies. We here in New England had TV 56, one of the UHF channels. I understand that there was one in Pennsylvania, I think one in New York we found, and then apparently a bunch. Let's start with this, Jeff. Why don't you tell folks what it was? What was a real Creature Double Feature?
Yeah, so and for those of you who are not Gen X and older, this is probably a weird concept for you, but we had ABC, NBC, CBS, and PBS, and that was it. And then you had these independent stations like Channel 56, and they would get other content and just try to fill some spaces. And so this Creature Double Feature filled some spaces in their weekend, and then ended up filling, us with some entertainment, because these were a lot of B movies like The Mummy and Creature from the Black Lagoon. Well, I mean, I guess no, those are all B movies, but like older black and white horror films. And the newer ones were definitely like either B movies or some of my favorites, all those Godzilla movies. And so it was a double feature of creature-based movies, either horror or sci-fi, or a combo of horror and sci-fi. This is a double feature. So
Yeah, they were the best. We used to plan our Sundays because we had TV 56, but we also had TV 38, and every Sunday morning from like 8 to 10 was 8 to 10, maybe 9 to 11. It was a couple hours in the morning on TV 38 was the Three Stooges, which we'll probably have to talk about the Stooges at some point in time. And then we would switch to 56 because it was the Creature Double Feature. So it was planned. My brother and I don't think my sister ever watched with us, but John and I would sit down and we would watch every Creature Double Feature. It was just the best part of the weekend because, and I can't even say if it was like, we knew they were campy or we just loved the old school, because let's be honest, when they made them, I don't think they intended for them to be campy. I think they thought they were making like a good creature movie, but when in 60s and 70s, when these things were being made, like it was cutting edge for them to build an entire miniature city for a dude in a big rubber suit to walk through. Like that was the best that they could do.
no, I mean, Godzilla was, what they were doing was cutting edge for that time. Like, and as even to a certain degree, even to today, like, because I know Guillermo del Toro who's did Pacific Rim. He avoids computer generated graphics and tries to do real. So there's still well, and actually, what Star Wars was miniatures, right? Like it was like
Yes.
initially, like so that whole using kind of miniature and scale models and not computer generated graphics. Yeah, they thought they were making, and to a certain degree they were making something pretty groundbreaking and inspirational for the most part. But some, I don't know if you're familiar with Ed Wood. He was a director. Johnny Depp did
Johnny Depp made the movie,
they made a movie about him, and he was not as interested in creating something quality. He wanted to do something really quick. Campy was fine, and he was just trying to make a buck. So there was a bit of that too. But I mean, Creature Double Feature had Dracula and Frankenstein, The Fly. So it was giant creatures, classic monsters, mad science, and for us, because I was not, as a kid, I was not into horror. I didn't really, and I know technically that stuff was, but like it didn't seem even that scary to me. I know it was Creature Double Feature, but I don't remember being all that scared.
No, I mean, I remember, I forget, of course, which one, because there were 1,000 different versions, it felt like, of Godzilla. But I remember one, there were like these two little Japanese girls.
That's Mothra.
Was it Mothra?
I just rewatched that.
And they were like the cutest little thing, and they would sing to Mothra, and Mothra would be, although Mothra was considered one of the good guys, right?
Yes.
Which was I mean, as goofy as some of this was, you do have to give them a bit of a nod to the storytelling. They still had a good guy and a bad guy. They were just all creatures, right? Godzilla was traditionally seen as the bad guy.
Well, it's interesting because it's really complicated, and I didn't appreciate that as a kid, but I was rewatching the original Godzilla, which I probably never watched. So apparently in the US, we got Godzilla King of the Monsters, an Americanized version, had the actor Raymond Burr in it. And actually when I watched the original Godzilla for the very first time, because I'm sure that I did not see this version, I was amazed because you don't see Godzilla until 30 minutes into the movie. They weren't trying to make something campy. They were inspired by King Kong. And so they were trying to make their own version of King Kong. And they wanted it to be pretty dramatic. And they were using, like, it was the nuclear testing that disrupted the environment of Godzilla that made him rise up. Whereas I always thought that it was more like the nuclear stuff created Godzilla, not that he already existed, he was already there, but we disrupted his environment. And so
it's funny. I guess I always thought the same.
Yeah. So I think what's interesting is that they I can't remember what, like, the point I was trying to make. But the point I was trying to make was that I lost the loss. Oh yes, that's right. The good guy, a bad guy.
Good guy.
Like Godzilla was like, that was our fault. And so the characters in the original Godzilla were kind of conflicted because they realized that they ruined Godzilla's environment. And so he was just out. He was angry and trying to get back at them. And so they felt a little bit bad about it. So yeah, he was the villain, but it was like an anti-hero kind of. You kind of rooted for him a little bit, but also wanted him gone. So
did you watch the English version? So I did a quick live Google because I wasn't sure when. The original Godzilla was actually called Gojira.
Yeah.
And it was 1954.
Yes.
Then it came out again in 56, which I'm assuming was the American version.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. And I definitely, as a kid, waiting 30 minutes for Godzilla to show up, I don't know if I would have had the patience. So, I'm sure I watched the Americanized version. I'm
Oh,
sure
we
what
don't
we
have
got.
any patience for anything here. We're always it's worse today. Not in the same genre, but I just rewatched a movie with my daughter, Death Becomes Her. And I remember thinking, oh, that wasn't a bad movie. It was Bruce Willis, Goldie Hawn, and Meryl Streep.
And
It's an interesting movie. The whole idea revolves around this obsession with beauty and longevity and youth. And they they take the special potion that keeps them young forever, but then they get killed and they're like zombies essentially. And it's campy and silly, but it took 40 minutes to really kick in. Like there's a lot of storytelling, there's a lot of background. Like, and this is only like 20 years ago, 25, maybe 30 years ago. But
wow. Well, hey,
it's one of those, like, so
with
just
our creature double feature.
It's creature-esque, but it follows that older
that horror
model is what I'm trying to talk
Yeah.
about. Like, it takes forever to get to stuff. And I was watching this movie going, why is this so slow? I don't remember it being this slow. Because, you watch a movie now, a creature movie today, and we'll talk about some of the new stuff coming up, but it's like bang, like the first scene, someone gets ripped to shreds, right? Because we
Yeah.
don't want to wait.
Right.
Let's take a trip through time. It's a geek flashback.
All right. So, creature double feature. I have to admit, one thing that stands out to me from that time period is influenced by the creature double feature, and that was the Shogun Warrior toys. I loved, and I know it's not creature double feature, so I'm probably not. I shouldn't be going down this tangent, but I loved some of the toys we had as Gen X.
I'm gonna
and it got canceled because of, and so the Shogun Warrior. So part of the genre, this kaiju with Japanese creatures, is in order for puny humans to fight them, they had to get these giant robots. And the Shogun Warriors were this toy brand that was inspired by those giant mechas. That and then you see that in the Pacific Rim many, many years later. But I love that. I love the Shogun Warrior toy, and but it was considered too dangerous because it was actually projectiles that you could like shoot like out of their arms, and they're worried that you'd shoot someone's eye out, kid. And but man, I loved those toys. So
I don't remember those. I
Yeah.
remember the huge mechas for the movie.
And it does tie in because Godzilla was the same Mattel brand, and they had and we got a giant Godzilla, so we could make our Shogun Warriors fight Godzilla, even though technically the Shogun Warriors were a separate thing from Godzilla, but it was the same idea, the Mecha Warrior against the kaiju. And by the way, I'm saying kaiju like I knew what they were. I didn't. Like we grew up watching kaiju films, and I don't think I ever heard that word until Pacific Rim came out. And then, since then, the movie Pacific Rim, I don't know when that was, like 13 years ago. But since then, I've also heard that term used in, oh man, the new Superman. There was like a kaiju he had to fight.
Yeah.
And then, and
I just watched that clip earlier.
oh,
2013
man.
for Pacific Rim.
Okay, 2015, so 10 years ago. And then, oh God, the Suicide Squad. So I think James Gunn must have been inspired because he
must be
used
like
the
a
word
Godzilla
kaiju for some of their giant monsters as well. So yeah, so before I knew what kaiju were, or I knew that they were called kaiju, which just means like giant strange monster or beast or something. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember. I think we talked about this before the episode too. Like I don't remember that word either until probably Pacific Rim. we're going to talk about it in another segment, but there's a newer show where they use that term more. But in terms of flashback, I do, God, I think my entire flashback is our whole episode, right? Because it was the start of, there was a lot of time where I loved horror movies. I loved Friday the 13th. I loved the Freddy movies. I loved the, oh God, the Hellraiser movies, the guy with the needles in his face. I got into all of those, and I think it started because I was every Sunday morning. It was, I loved these movies, and the show I'm going to talk about, I think in Evolution, or we're going to maybe do in Geek Court, is like the epitome of the best parts of all that stuff. But yeah, I loved that Sunday ritual. Thinking about these movies, just talking about these movies brings me back to like a warm and cozy blanket watching TV 56, and or whatever channel you watched it on. That's what I watched it on. If you guys haven't figured it out by now, I have a little bit of a cold. I apologize for all the grainy, crappy sound.
Well, I can do some of the heavier lifting then. So yeah, so I agree. Like the as we flash back and think about the Creature Double feature, I mean, when we were growing up, I think in Gen X, more so than some of the other generations, because like I live in a neighborhood full of kids that I hardly ever see because they're often inside and not playing outside. We got kicked out of the house. So when I could actually get to watch Creature Double feature, when my mom didn't force me out of the house, stop watching TV, get out there. Must have been like bad weather or something that I could actually do it. I loved those movies. However, for me, I did not think of them as scary. And I know I was supposed to. I know like Dracula and Frankenstein were supposed to be scary, but maybe because they were black and white. I don't know. It just didn't scare me as much. Because I did not get into Halloween and Friday the 13th and any of that until probably maybe you, because I think it was the first horror movie I remember, like true horror movie, that wasn't part of Creature Double feature that I remember watching was Nightmare on Elm Street. That was the first one I saw in the movie theater. I thought it was pretty scary. And then Hellraiser, I thought was really scary. That was 87 though. I was 17.
Yeah. Those were, and those were great. One little note though, I guess it's funny because we never thought about this stuff at the time, but the reason that they did a Creature Double feature apparently is because they were cheap. Because these movies were like not even second, third run, like 10th run, right? They were, we were in the late 70s and early 80s. And these movies were made in the 50s and 60s. So there were no like licensing errors or issues. Rather, there was no super huge cost. So what they were doing is a time filler, calling it Creature Double feature, just like, oh, we'll fill 4 hours on a Sunday. We don't even have to think about it.
Yeah. I mean, so just, this is before VHS. This is before streaming. This is before like we didn't have a lot of options. Because these were
it was
independent,
Creature Double feature or Snow.
These were independent TV stations. They didn't have CBS Sports that they could do like play a baseball game or a football game. They had to fill some hours and they needed to do it as cheaply as possible. So they found these movies that were 20, 30 years old and they put them out there. So, but we got the benefit, right? So we got to live that I think it's probably why I remember TV shows as if they were new, but they were black and white shows, which didn't, black and white wasn't a thing when we were kids, for new stuff. Like TV was in color by the time we were watching TV. Not that my kids would let me admit that because they think I'm older than God, but, we grew up watching, Creature Double feature, Laurel and Hardy, the Three Stooges, Abbott and Costello. I thought I was watching Gilligan's Island for the first time, even the black and white ones. And actually, to show you what a coward I was about not liking scary things, I had a reoccurring nightmare because there was an ending to Gilligan's Island where Gilligan and the skipper are being chased around the island by a gorilla, and they cut to black.
I remember that.
And I like, did they get away? I don't know. So I had a reoccurring nightmare about the gorilla catching up to Gilligan and the skipper.
Oh my God,
So
that's hysterical.
I was scared. I was not I was not comfortable with horror movies, and so that's why it's funny to me that I looked at this creature double feature more, and I think the sci-fi type of lens and less so horror.
Yeah, and there were a lot of those too.
The fandom is divided. It's time for Geek Court.
All right, so we're talking classic horror or creature versus modern. I'm going to say horror or creature, just to widen our choices a little bit. But we're talking creature double feature. So I forget which way we said we were going to go.
So I'm taking the classic. So
Classic.
I'm going to argue for classic horror, those classic creature films. What was great about it is that they were pure escapism. Like, you could be a kid watching it, you could be an adult watching it, and people, like the whole family, could enjoy that kind of classic creature horror that you could not like I said, like as a kid, I wouldn't want to watch some of this modern horror. I just could not handle that. So it was atmospheric over gore. You know, it's just more like shadows and tension and lighting. I mean, if you think about like Dracula, there was that suspense, but you didn't see a lot of like blood or gore, or there are things happening, but you didn't get to necessarily see it. I mean, I know this wasn't part of Creature Double Feature, but I'm just going to use this. Psycho, the shower scene. You see the knife rise and fall. You see the shower curtain. You see the silhouette of the victim. You see the what's actually chocolate syrup, not blood, but it's black and white, so you couldn't tell. Circling around the drain. You never see the knife enter the body, and so you didn't need that kind of gore. You could make it so that you could tell the tale. You could increase the tension through other means. You had to be creative, and the same thing, with those Godzilla special effects. Those scale models were incredibly detailed, and we kind of laugh about what that looks like now and today, but we can just do it better today. And there, like I said, Guillermo del Toro is still creating content using very similar technology. It just looks better because we have better tools at our disposal. So for me, I'm going to argue that the classic creature horror and classic horror, that's where it's at. What do you think?
Obviously, taking the other side here, I'm going more modern. And I think the stuff you're talking about are valid points for those movies at the time, right? We always talk about looking at things in context, but those movies were more family friendly because they were less intense. I, as a kid, by the way, watched Psycho, and it terrified me. It terrified me. I didn't want to watch it. It was one of those, my mother's like, you should watch this movie with me. And it was the most horrible thing. I was 10 or 12. I was like, this was not something I should have watched.
That's crazy.
But on the thing about the modern, and I have to expand because I'm thinking about it as we're talking. I can't think of a modern creature story, right? There are zombie movies. There are ones that we're going to talk about more in depth with Predator and Aliens, but in terms of like a creature, they're all the same creatures.
The Shape of Water, right? Is that's Guillermo del Toro?
Well, Shape of Water wasn't really a horror
Pan's
movie.
Labyrinth.
Though. Pan's Labyrinth was pretty good.
Frankenstein coming out.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. They're not new. Like all of the movies that are coming out there are no new creatures that I can think of offhand. I love zombie movies. Walking Dead's one of my favorite shows. It's a creature show, right? But it does everything, especially The Walking Dead did stuff I loved because you never knew where that writing was going to go. Now, I never read the books. I know you read some of the books when they were just graphic novels. So some of that stuff you knew was coming that I didn't know about. But his ability, what's his name? Robert, the guy who created the book. I'll have to look it up. But he had no problem killing off main characters, right? The idea
George
that
R. R. Martin?
No.
Oh.
For who wrote the not
Walking
Game
Dead?
of Thrones. This is for The Walking Dead.
Oh, Walking Dead, yeah. Kirkman, I think.
Robert Kirkman, yeah. So Kirkman, he gave us this universe, but in the TV show and that adaptation of it, it's everything that those other movies weren't. It was gory. They didn't cut away. They leaned in. I remember one scene. I don't even remember the character's name. He was a younger kid. They found him in like season 2 or 3, but in season 8 or whatever it was, he gets caught in they're running from zombies and he gets walkers, as they call them. It's a turnstile door, and it's a close-up shot of his face just scrunching, and his whole face explodes. I was just watching the first couple episodes of the new It on HBO Max, and it is as graphic and gory as you can imagine. And you can hear it in my voice. As disgusting as some of these scenes are, I love that, the stress of it. I feed on that. I for the record, did watch that show during the day because I don't need to have horrible nightmares. But I love the modern take, right? The writing is solid. The characters are solid. It's, the original Godzillas in those movies, we aren't there. We aren't here without them there. But I think, I have so many things in my head at the same time. I think that they really present these stories strongly. I love that they lean into this intensity. One of my favorite horror movies of all time that still disturbs me to this day is not a creature movie, and that's the movie Seven with Brad Pitt. And that disturbs me that movie scares me more than any Walking Dead. And that's because of the potential for reality in Seven is much higher than the potential for The Walking Dead. So that's my thing. I love modern horror, but I always have that level of detachment when I'm watching it. Because the idea is like, what are they going to do? Right? Yeah. How are you going to try to gross me out? How are you going to try to blow my mind? And it's why I love The Walking Dead, because they blew my mind at least twice a season with a character death or some crazy shit that they pulled.
Yeah, and actually, I think the really, really scary stuff is the stuff that could actually happen, and that's why I think Psycho was more impactful. You found that more frightening than the creatures. And the same thing, I think, with Silence of the Lambs. I mean, that they're all, both of those are based on Ed Gein. They're based on a real serial killer, right? So, yes. I mean, that's scarier than like Alien. I never saw the first Alien movie. I saw Aliens. That was my first introduction to that franchise, and that was more of an action movie. But then I did watch Alien later, and it's scary, but it's a creature, and so you can kind of get that separation. Whereas when you watch, some of these other, like even the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, also Ed Gein based, it's scarier because like there could really be a psycho like that. That could really happen.
Didn't know all those were based on the same guy, for the record.
Yeah, I know.
This is new information
Ed
for
Gein,
me.
He's like
an
inspiration for
apparently. Thank God for Ed Gein. There's like 3 different horror franchises.
Without him, we don't have Psycho, Texas Chainsaw
Massacre,
Massacre, Silence of the Lambs. What a guy.
Dust it off and geek it out, because it's a basement treasure.
They're digging in the wrong place.
Right. So my basement treasure is the fact that if you have HBO Max, you can watch about a dozen of the original Godzilla movies from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. And so you can experience the cheese, but also the delight that were these movies. I mean, a giant moth against Mothra against Godzilla. I mean, you got to enjoy that. And then when Mothra is defeated, she's on this egg, and this egg hatches, and these two little I don't know what they're supposed to be, but they're almost like giant they're like slugs almost, and they shoot out or caterpillars. Maybe they're caterpillars, because I guess that's what Mothra, right? I guess they'd be caterpillars, and they're shooting. They cover Godzilla in this goo. it's so dumb.
I don't remember that one.
Just enjoy it. It's on, and a lot often, we can't. A lot of these classics you got to either buy or dig someplace else, but it's right on HBO Max, so I think that's pretty good. That's my favorite.
I'll have to jump back into some of those. Like I said, I was just watching the new It, and it is also on HBO Max. For me, it was going to the video store, because now this is probably fast forwarding to 15 or 16 for me. So would have been 84 maybe, 82, somewhere in there. Around that, when we first got our first VCR, my brother and I both, we're very Italian, we're very Catholic. We did a confirmation. The family came up, and we, the traditional Italian Catholic way of celebrating these things is with a card with money in it. And so we pooled the money that we both got, and we bought a VCR. So that was we bought our first VCR. So we would go to, I don't even think it was Blockbuster at the time.
No,
I don't remember what the video chain was back in the day, but it was pre-Blockbuster. But we would go looking for movies, and so all of these classic movies were in there. I won't say Nightmare on Elm Street. I don't remember when that one came out, but there were these classic horror movies. And so for me, it reminds me of going to the store as a kid and feeling like I had this power to choose, what the entertainment would be. And I always liked the horror movies, which probably pissed off the rest of the family, but I did.
That's funny.
But that was then, Jeff, and this is now.
From floppy disks to streaming clicks, it's Geek Evolution.
All right. So to stick with the creature parts of this, we talked all about the original Kaiju, 52, 54 for Godzilla. I do remember they made a Godzilla movie, I want to say probably mid-80s, maybe even into the 90s, with Matthew Broderick, I think it was.
I thought that was in the 90s.
Was that the 90s?
Yeah.
And they actually, the first, I think, yes, very forgettable. The first time the special effects were pretty good, but I think it's the first time I remember them actually using the word Gojira in an Americanized Godzilla movie. But now we have Godzilla versus Kong. There's a couple of those movies, Rebirth or whatever the heck it's called. But yeah, this is...
Godzilla is the longest running franchise. It's
of any?
Yes. Yeah, so it started in 54 and it continues to this day. It's considered the same franchise, and it's and so I mean, as far as an evolution, it really has gone through a number of different kind of shifts as to, if we just look at Godzilla. And I have to admit, I have not seen Godzilla -1, but I've heard good things. But I actually liked, and I know not everyone did, the new Godzilla, King of the Monsters. I think it was 2018 that they came out. Had the actress from Strange Thing.
Millie Bobby Brown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually like that. And then, although I admit I did not, I've seen some of the new King Kong ones. I actually like. It's not. I haven't. I have to admit I haven't watched all of them because I didn't watch the Godzilla versus King Kong, where
Yes,
you were telling me that he's got a metal gauntlet. So
that's the new Empire. Yeah.
yeah, so I haven't watched all of that, but I think, and I know we touched about it before, but that whole notion of kaiju and how that has evolved out of just Japanese films, that now it's commonly being used in James Gunn's DC universe as kaiju. Pacific Rim was using the term kaiju and having that clearly was an inspiration there. Steven Spielberg says that for Jurassic Park, he was inspired by the Godzilla films to make Jurassic Park. So, in I keep bringing it out, Guillermo del Toro. I don't always pronounce his name properly, but he also found that style of film very inspirational. And so the creature film, it is with us today, and I think you know Jordan Peele quote is, horror is the most honest genre. It tells you what people are afraid of today. And when when Godzilla came out, people are afraid of nuclear and nuclear power and the effects of
Yeah.
it. And then you get to something more modern today, and a lot of our horror is it seems like we're kind of scared of other humans. All the A24 movies, the horror is the creepy, horrible things humans can do to one another.
Well,
Hereditary,
isn't one of them called
Midsummer,
Us?
Us,
Us and Them.
yeah, and them, exactly. Yeah,
Those are
the
two of the movies.
Strangers.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like, it's not that there, and I know you were talking about like you couldn't think of any, other creature films. I mean, they're out there. I mean, the zombie films, the creature films, Alien,
Yeah.
for instance. But I think that that by and large there was that the impact and that legacy is with us today in the Godzilla films. And you had mentioned on Apple TV show. I haven't seen that one, but that's your critical hit, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. We'll get back to that in a minute.
Okay.
It's funny because we keep using this word, and I realize I feel like I'm Inigo Montoya. You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means. I didn't know what it meant. Apparently, I thought kaiju was like a proprietary term because I was starting to wonder, like, how are all these people using the word kaiju? Right? Because I thought it was like Godzilla. I thought it was a name that somebody created, but apparently it's like saying beast or monster. That's all kaiju
Just sounds
means.
cooler.
It just sounds cooler.
Japanese.
It's the Japanese word for strange beast or monster. And Godzilla is just the most famous example of a strange monster. So literally kaiju is a monster movie. So a kaiju movie is a monster movie. I don't know why I find that fascinating at the moment, but I do. Like, that's just wild. I didn't know that.
And it what's weird, when I was watching in the term used in like the new Superman movie, is they're saying it like we all know what that is. And I feel like we didn't all know what kaiju meant.
Oh, no.
Like Green Lantern, Guy Gardner in Superman's like, oh, there's a kaiju beast or something like that.
Yeah.
Which now is just redundant to say a kaiju beast. But
He lands. I just saw the clip. He lands. You see Superman crawl out from under the beast, and he lands and says, "Kaiju steaks all around." And
okay.
he says, "I was
Nice.
hoping we could have taken it humanely or something like that." And she's like, "Don't be a wuss." But that's the character. But yeah, he says kaiju steaks, and it's just funny because you're right. Everybody kind of knows what that means now, but probably 15, 20 years ago, people would have been like, "What the hell is a kaiju?"
No, we just said Godzilla, we said beast, we said monster, we said
Yeah.
creature. We didn't call them kaiju.
Kids don't know how good you've got it.
Here's what I want to say. Let's keep these movies alive and this genre. And I think one of the cool things, like I didn't realize that Godzilla was one of the largest or longest running franchises. So, in a world divided by everything that's happening these days that we're afraid of, us, them, and the government, this is something that everybody can relate to, right? Because there's a reference point from 1952 all the way to 2025. And in fact, the show I'm going to talk about during our hits and fails, the next season comes out next year. So it's not over. So I love the idea that multiple generations, us old geezers and the new kids today, can watch the same evolution of this character type. If you haven't been someone who's watched these movies, the beauty of these movies is they are kind of sanitized in a way. They're not as gross and disgusting as like the It that I was just talking about, or Walking Dead. They have, people die and it's crazy. It's a creature movie, but they're typically not gory or disgusting for the sake of disgust. They usually have good special effects and they usually have great storylines. So, I mean, get out there and watch some Godzilla, man.
Yeah, I agree. And I know I'm not usually the one to be the, you kids don't know how good you got it. But I have to admit, in this case, it's absolutely true. When like you can just stream any of this content. We had to wait until Saturday or Sunday for those double features. And it was the only time because the ABC, NBC, they weren't showing these films. We caught them on the weekends. Now you can catch them streaming. Enjoy this, these classic creature films. Go get caught up on your 1964 Mothra versus Godzilla.
Do you know, it's funny. Not only was there no streaming, these weren't even the mainstream channels. I don't know that we said this at the beginning, but TV 56, TV 38, because of the way TV transmissions used to work, there was very high frequency and ultra high frequency.
Yeah.
VHF and UHF. VHF had a longer reach distance wise. So a VHF channel would be ABC, NBC, CBS. Those were the big three, and those were on the best signal that could send it the longest distance. These UHF, even though it sounds better because it's ultra high frequency, they were shorter throw. So you couldn't always get these. So we were living in Maine and you could barely get TV 56 and 38. And if you were living in upstate Maine, you never we were in southern Maine. We were about as close to New Hampshire as you could get. So just a little history. If you don't understand what we're talking about, it's because not only were they only on specific channels, but if you didn't live within a certain radius of that tower in Boston, you didn't see these things ever.
Yeah.
That's why some people will be like, what do you mean creature double feature? Because they didn't have a UHF style channel. So you probably didn't see these things growing up. So definitely go. Sorry, a little history lesson for you guys.
I loved it.
It's critical hits and epic fails.
All right. Well, listen, I am going to get the cat out of the bag. I keep talking about this show, and this is my critical hit. I thought they did a phenomenal job. It's an Apple TV show called Monarch: Legacy of Monsters. I described it before as, if you're a Marvel fan, and you probably are if you're listening to us at any point in time, it's like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was for the Marvel Universe. It is a crossover TV show about Godzilla and how it relates to the rest of the kaiju. Now, in this universe, the most recent iteration, they're coming through portals from another world, and there's some time dilation or time travel involved. But the really cool part to me, the storytelling is great. The special effects, it's Apple. They spend all the money. Great special effect. Kurt Russell plays this character in the show. and they flash back and forth between modern times and the 60s or 70s. And the actor who plays him as a younger man is his son, Wyatt Russell. So they play the same character, but it's father and son. So I know it seems like a small detail to some folks, but I thought it was really brilliant casting to use the same actors from the same family. And Wyatt Russell, of course, is a Marvel guy. And so he's a great actor. Kurt Russell is just Kurt Russell. He's been in everything, and he can be really serious or super campy. And this definitely has some lighter touch to it, which is fun. But absolutely phenomenal show. If you love this is what I was talking about before. If you love this genre, this keeps it going. And it's the right amount of, creature showdowns and political intrigue and great characters and funny. And some of it's just silly, but it's great. So definitely go watch Monarch.
Nice. Yeah, I'll give that a shot. And my epic fail is an epic fail on the square, because it's kind of not a fail. It's this production company called The Asylum, and they make knockoffs. And they name them in such a close way that you might think you're watching the real thing. So the epic fail is when you turn on Battle of Los Angeles, thinking you're watching the Battle Los Angeles movie. It's very close, has the exact same plot. They're fighting off an alien invasion. In one case, you've got super low budget, cheesy as can be, where like when they want the effect of like of a ship getting, of movement. They're actually, everyone in the room is pretending to move and the camera's moving. The room doesn't ever move.
It's the old Star Trek.
Yeah. Like, oh, so they've got some other great like campy movies like Sharknado and all of the Sharknadoes. That's The Asylum. They came up with Atlantic Rim instead of Pacific Rim. And
my favorite is Snakes on a Train.
Snakes on a Train instead of Snakes on a Plane. So Alone for Christmas instead of Home Alone. So they just are ripping off movie after movie after movie. But I will admit that to a certain degree, like this is what would have been on Creature Double Feature. So I can't get too upset about it because it's that cheap, quick production and get it out there and direct to video, direct to streaming. And they've made so many movies. The only thing that makes them a fail really is when you think you're watching the real McCoy. Are you like maybe you actually paid to stream it or rent it or whatever, and the next thing you know, you've got the knockoff. So but yeah, Sharknado actually is, those are really fun and entertaining, and I've seen a lot of their stuff. So
I will say it's funny because we were making fun of that company earlier because they have. Just go to theasylum.com and read all the titles because that'll make you giggle for like 20 minutes. I know it did make me, but like I wasn't thinking
two-headed shark attack was followed by three-headed, then four-headed, then five-headed, then six-headed shark attack.
But I wasn't thinking of it in terms of these are the new Creature Double Feature movies. That's brilliant. I love that because they really are. They're the horrible.
Yes, these
are
like these are the new Creature Double Features.
It does suck that they're ripping off like really good properties.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because you're tricked by it because The Meg came out and they came out with the movie Megalodon. So you might be thinking, oh, we're going to watch The Meg. And I can't remember who it was, but I remember someone watching Atlantic Rim and I had seen Pacific Rim and I really loved it. And I was talking to that person like, that movie sucks. The graphics are bad. like, what are you talking about? No, it's like this. The special effects are amazing. And then we realized we're talking about two different movies.
So I think in this message to the new generation, we have to include a warning label that says, make sure you're watching the right one. Please make sure you're watching the right ones because some of these are just shit and some of them are amazing. So go watch the real ones. So we have some questions for you. our faithful listeners. What was your first Creature Double Feature memory? Do you have one? Did you have a version of Creature Double Feature? Was it just Creature? Right? Because some people, I guess, didn't get 2 back to back. Did you, is this the kind of thing that you're still into? Let us know. And if you like a different genre of these movies, we've touched on a couple with the other creatures, with zombies and stuff like that. Like, so I know there's Walking Dead has their own universe. And, but yeah, if you have something like that, that you want, write in, let us know. originalgeekpodcast@gmail.com. And make sure that you're going out, do all the things, right? Like, subscribe, give us 5-star reviews. All this helps us keep this thing moving. Make sure that you check out our merch. I don't have it on me today, but the originalgeekpodcast.com/merch. I'm going to try to start putting up some episode related merch. Maybe we'll have to do a creature merch shirt.
Maybe
and
we
see
can
what
do a
we
tie-in with the Asylum, the new Creature Double Feature production
The
company.
new Creature Double Feature. I have a mock-up I'll show you afterwards, but I did actually do one. But yeah, so originalgeekpodcast.com, originalgeekpodcast@gmail.com. Please like, subscribe, and tell us what you love. Tell us what you hate.
Right. Thanks, OGs. See you next time.